The bait, the UES Retribution, drifted through the crimson clouds of the Kepler Nebula, her engines sputtering with calculated weakness. To any observer, she appeared wounded, limping like a dying animal through the cosmic mists. Sparks flew from damaged hull plates, carefully placed charges that created the perfect illusion of vulnerability. Captain Jenna Cross stood on the bridge, her dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, though a few rebellious strands had escaped to frame her sharp features. She watched the tactical display with green eyes that missed nothing, tracking the approaching signatures of the Zalani fleet. 47 ships, more than enough to obliterate her vessel if this had been a real retreat. "Distance to contact?" she asked, her voice steady as steel. Lieutenant Marcus Vale looked up from his console, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. 18 minutes until they're in weapons range, Captain." His brown eyes met hers for a moment longer than protocol demanded, carrying a weight of unspoken words. They had served together for 3 years, fought side by side through the worst battles of the human-Zalani War. Somewhere between dodging plasma fire and sharing rations during long patrol runs, friendship had deepened into something neither dared acknowledge, not when every mission could be their last. "All stations report ready for Operation Crimson Gambit," Marcus continued, forcing his attention back to his displays. "Engineering confirms the decoy damage is holding. The Zalani should read us as a crippled destroyer running for home." Jenna nodded, suppressing a smile at his professionalism. Even now, with death approaching from multiple vectors, he maintained perfect military bearing. It was one of the things she had come to admire about him. Across the void, Commander Thekvar of the Zalani 4th Fleet studied the human vessel through predatory eyes. His scaled skin rippled with patterns of anticipation, and his forked tongue tasted the recycled air of his command ship's bridge. The humans had grown bold, sending their ships deep into Zalani territory. This one would pay for that arrogance. "The prey limps before us," he hissed to his tactical officer. "See how it trails debris and plasma." Their engines falter. His subordinate's membrane-covered eyes dilated with excitement. "Shall we close for the kill, Commander?" "Patience. Let our hunters surround it first. I want no escape routes. This human ship will serve as a message to their fleet. Stay in your own space or burn." Back aboard the Retribution, Jenna felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came before battle. But this time, something else competed with the pre-combat adrenaline. The way Marcus had looked at her during the mission briefing, the subtle brush of his fingers when he'd handed her the tactical reports. Did he feel it too, this impossible attraction blooming in the midst of war? "Captain," he said softly, and she realized the bridge crew was cycling out for the final preparations. In moments they would be alone. "About what you said earlier." "Marcus." She turned to face him fully, noting how the nebula's red glow caught the strong line of his jaw. "After the battle, when this is over, and if it doesn't go as planned," his voice dropped to barely above a whisper, "if something happens to one of us?" The question hung between them like the space mines they'd set in the nebula's depths. Jenna stepped closer, close enough to smell his familiar scent beneath the recycled air of the ship. For just a moment, she let herself imagine a different life, one where they could explore what lay between them without the shadow of duty. "Then we make sure it does go as planned," she said, her hand briefly touching his. The contact sent electricity through both of them, a promise of what might be possible when the shooting stopped. The tactical display chimed. Red dots appeared at the edge of their sensors, multiplying rapidly. The Zalani fleet had arrived, spreading out in a perfect encirclement pattern. 47 ships, just as intelligence had predicted. Jenna straightened, sliding back into her role as captain like putting on armor. "All hands to battle stations. Communications. Maintain radio silence. Let them think we're too damaged to fight." Marcus returned to his console, but not before giving her one last look that said everything words couldn't. Whatever happened in the next few hours, they would face it together. The trap was set. The hunters had become the hunted, though they didn't know it yet. In the crimson depths of the nebula, the real battle was about to begin. The swarm, the Zalani fleet, closed like a metallic fist around the drifting human warship. Commander Thekvar watched from his flagship's observation deck as his vessels took perfect positions, their angular hulls gleaming dully in the nebula's crimson light. Each ship bristled with plasma cannons and torpedo tubes, enough firepower to reduce a space station to atoms. Beautiful, he whispered, savoring the moment. The human ship listed helplessly between his formations, venting atmosphere in carefully timed bursts. Begin the interrogation protocol. I want to hear them beg before they burn. Aboard the Retribution, Chief Engineer Riley Sato crouched beneath a sparking console, her tools working frantically to maintain the illusion of critical damage. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she rerouted power from non-essential systems, making their energy signature appear weak and failing. Zilani transmission coming through, reported the communications officer. Jenna nodded grimly. On speakers. Thekvar's translated voice filled the bridge, cold and mocking. Human vessel, you have trespassed in sacred Zilani space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crew will face judgment for this violation. Marcus caught Jenna's eye, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. They both knew what came next. She gave an almost imperceptible nod. This is Captain Cross of the UES Retribution, she replied, allowing a tremor of fear to color her voice. Our engines are failing. We're drifting on emergency power. Please, we need medical assistance. The lie came easily, part of a performance they had rehearsed countless times. On the Zilani flagship, Thekvar's membrane-covered eyes dilated with pleasure. Fear in a human voice was like fine music to his species. There will be no mercy, he hissed. You will die as an example to others who would dare. Commander! His tactical officer's urgent cry cut through the transmission. Sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the nebula. Something is wrong. Jenna killed the comm channel and straightened, all pretense falling away. Marcus, execute Crimson Gambit. Full power to weapons and shields. The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. The Retribution's hull plates shifted, revealing hidden weapon ports. Her engines roared to full power, dispersing the false damage clouds. Most shocking of all, the nebula itself began to move. What the Zilani had mistaken for natural cosmic phenomena were actually cloaked human vessels, 12 heavy cruisers and 36 fighters, all powered down and drifting until this moment. The trap hadn't been just one wounded ship, but an entire battle group hiding in the nebula's crimson embrace. All ships, weapons free, Jenna commanded. Target their heavy units first. Remember, we need to make this fast and clean. Marcus's fingers flew over his console, coordinating the sudden reversal. Firing solution locked on their flagship. Shall I give them a moment to surrender? Jenna felt a familiar warmth at his dry humor, even in the midst of battle. Negative. Fire. The first barrage caught the Zilani completely off guard. Concentrated fire from 4 human cruisers struck Thekvar's flagship simultaneously. His shields flared brilliant white before collapsing entirely. Secondary explosions rippled along his hull as armor plating buckled. Impossible! Thekvar screamed, his scaled hands gripping the command rail. How many ships? How many are there? His tactical officer's voice cracked with panic. 48 human vessels, Commander. They were hiding in the nebula. We're surrounded! The battle erupted in full fury. Plasma bolts and missile trails crisscrossed the crimson clouds. The Zilani formation, perfect for surrounding one ship, became a death trap when facing enemies on all sides. Human vessels darted between the larger alien ships like deadly fish, their weapons carving through hulls with surgical precision. Zilani Captain Vector commanded the second assault wave, his pride stinging from the humans' deception. Reform on me, he broadcast to his scattered ships. We still outnumber them. Concentrate fire on their largest vessels. But the humans had planned for this too. As the Zilani tried to regroup, the Retribution accelerated directly toward their center, weapons blazing. It was an insane maneuver, flying straight into the teeth of enemy fire, but it shattered their attempt at coordination. Marcus monitored the tactical display, calling out target priorities. 3 enemy cruisers moving to flank us. Shall I vector the Prometheus to intercept? Negative, Jenna replied, feeling the ship shudder under enemy fire. We stay in the center. Let them think we're being reckless. She caught his questioning look and smiled fiercely. Trust me, and he did. Even as plasma bolts scorched their hull and the deck shook beneath their feet, Marcus never doubted her judgment. That trust, forged through countless battles, had grown into something deeper than military respect. The Retribution plunged deeper into the enemy formation, drawing more ships into pursuit. Behind them, human forces closed the trap tighter, methodically destroying any Zilani vessel that tried to escape. In 15 minutes, the perfect ambush had become a rout. The storm unleashed, The Retribution shook violently as another plasma barrage struck her port shields. Sparks cascaded from overhead conduits, and the acrid smell of burning circuits filled the bridge. But Jenna Cross stood unmoved at the center of the chaos, her green eyes tracking the battle's flow on the tactical display. "Shield strength down to 60%, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite the blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "The Zilani are focusing their fire on us." "Good," Jenna replied. "That means the plan is working. Riley, how are those special packages?" Chief Engineer Riley Sato's voice crackled over the comm from deep in the ship's bowels. "Experimental weapons are charged and ready, Captain. But I still say we should have tested them more than twice." Jenna allowed herself a grim smile. The weapons Riley referred to were humanity's latest breakthrough in directed energy technology, quantum, disruptors capable of tearing apart matter at the molecular level. Command had only authorized their field deployment because of Operation Crimson Gambit's critical importance. Commander Thekvar's damaged flagship limped toward the Retribution, its weapons still functional despite the hull breaches. The Zilani commander's rage burned cold as stellar ice. These humans had made him look foolish before his subordinates. That insult demanded blood. "All remaining ships, converge on the lead human vessel," he commanded. "I want it obliterated. Show them the price of Zilani humiliation." 23 enemy ships answered his call, their weapons charging with lethal light. The human vessels scattered throughout the nebula were too far away to provide immediate support. For a few critical minutes, the Retribution would stand alone against overwhelming firepower. "Marcus," Jenna said quietly, her hand briefly touching his shoulder. "Time to show them what humanity can really do." He nodded, understanding passing between them without words. His fingers moved across the weapon controls with practiced precision. Quantum disruptors online, targeting their lead ships. The first shot was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Instead of the familiar blue-white of plasma fire, a stream of pure darkness erupted from the Retribution's hidden weapon ports. Where it touched the nearest Zilani cruiser, reality itself seemed to unravel. The ship's hull didn't explode or melt. It simply ceased to exist, leaving a perfect sphere of nothingness in space. The Zilani fleet faltered, their advance stumbling as crews stared in horror at the impossible weapon. Thekvar's membrane-covered eyes dilated in shock. "What sorcery is this? How do they unmake matter itself?" But Jenna wasn't finished. "Fire all disruptors. Show them humanity's true face." 6 more beams of annihilation lanced out, each one erasing another enemy vessel from existence. In seconds, nearly a third of the remaining Zilani force had been reduced to expanding clouds of elementary particles. The psychological effect was devastating. Zilani commanders who had faced death bravely for decades found themselves paralyzed by weapons that defied comprehension. Some ships tried to flee. Others fired wildly, their aim spoiled by terror. In the chaos, Marcus didn't see the damaged Zilani fighter spiraling toward their bridge. Its pilot, dying from radiation poisoning, had programmed one last kamikaze run. The small craft accelerated on a collision course, its remaining weapons preparing for a point-blank strike. "Incoming fighter!" the sensor operator shouted. Marcus threw himself sideways, tackling Jenna and dragging her behind the captain's chair just as the bridge's forward viewport exploded inward. The fighter's weapons discharge filled the command center with superheated plasma. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, but not before Marcus took the full force of a secondary explosion meant for his captain. He hit the deck hard, his uniform smoking from plasma burns. Jenna crawled to his side, her hands frantically checking. His injuries while around them, the bridge crew fought to regain control. "Medical team to the bridge!" she shouted, then looked down into Marcus's pain-filled eyes. "Stay with me, Lieutenant. That's an order." He managed a weak smile, his hand finding hers. "Can't disobey a direct order from my captain, Dr. Amelia." Hart arrived with her medical team, immediately assessing Marcus's condition. The ship's chief medical officer was a calm woman with silver-streaked hair and hands that never shook, no matter how dire the circumstances. "Severe plasma burns, possible internal injuries," she reported while her team prepared a stretcher. "He needs surgery immediately." As they carried Marcus toward the medical bay, Jenna felt something crack inside her chest. The professional armor she wore as captain couldn't protect her heart from this particular wound. She loved him, had been fighting that truth for months, and now might lose him before she'd found the courage to say the words. "Captain," the tactical officer called urgently. "The remaining Zilani ships are trying to reform. Should we press the attack?" Jenna forced herself back into command mode, though part of her wanted to follow Marcus to sickbay. "Negative. Signal all ships to hold position. Let them see what happens when they threaten humanity." The quantum disruptors fired again, and 3 more Zilani vessels vanished into nothingness. The survivors finally broke completely, scattering in all directions as their formation collapsed. But the battle wasn't over. Intelligence reports indicated Admiral Noxra was en route with reinforcements, and she was reportedly the finest military mind in the Zilani Empire. The real test was still to come. Hearts in the fire. The medical bay hummed with quiet efficiency as Dr. Amelia Hart worked to repair the damage to Marcus's body. Regenerative nanites flowed through his bloodstream, knitting torn tissue and neutralizing plasma toxins. Jenna sat beside his bed, her hand clasping his, watching the steady rhythm of his breathing. "The burns are healing well," Dr. Hart reported, checking her readings. "The nanites should have most of the damage repaired within a few hours. He's lucky. A few centimeters to the left and that plasma discharge would have killed him instantly." Jenna nodded without taking her eyes off Marcus's peaceful face. In sleep, the lines of command responsibility smoothed away, leaving only the man she had fallen in love with despite every regulation and rational thought. "Captain," he whispered, his eyes fluttering open. "Status report?" "The immediate threat is neutralized," she said softly. 15 enemy ships destroyed, the rest scattered. "But Marcus, you saved my life back there." He tried to sit up, wincing as healing tissue protested. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "No." Jenna's voice carried an intensity that made him look at her more closely. "That wasn't duty. That was something else." The medical bay's soft lighting cast gentle shadows across their faces as the truth finally emerged between them. 3 years of shared dangers, of trusting each other with their lives, of moments like this when the barriers of rank couldn't quite contain what they felt. "Jenna," he said quietly, using her first name for the first time on duty. "I've been wanting to tell you." "I know." She squeezed his hand. "I feel it too. I've been fighting it for months, telling myself it was just the stress of war, but—" An urgent chime from the bridge communicator interrupted them. Captain crossed to the bridge immediately. "Priority Alpha." Jenna closed her eyes, duty reasserting its claim. "I have to go." "I understand." Marcus struggled to sit up despite Dr. Hart's protests. "Help me up, Doc. If the captain's needed on the bridge—" "So am I, Lieutenant Vale." "You are in no condition. With respect, Doctor, my place is beside my captain." His brown eyes met Jenna's with quiet determination. "Always." Minutes later, they stood together on the repaired bridge, Marcus's arm in a support brace but his mind sharp as ever. Navigation Officer Yuki Tanaka looked up from her displays with concern etched on her features. "Long-range sensors are picking up massive hyperspace signatures," she reported. "Zilani reinforcements incoming. Estimated arrival, 40 minutes. The tactical display updated, showing new threat indicators emerging from the nebula's edge. Admiral Noxra's fleet dwarfed the force they had just defeated. Over 100 ships, including several massive dreadnoughts. "Intelligence briefing on Admiral Noxra," Marcus requested, his tactical mind already working despite his injuries. The display showed the image of an imposing Zilani female, her scales bearing the ritual scars of 100 victories. Her eyes held a cold intelligence that had outmaneuvered human commanders across a dozen star systems. "She's never lost a major engagement," Jenna murmured. "And she's bringing enough firepower to glass a planet." Riley Sato's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, the quantum disruptors are nearly depleted. Maybe 6 more shots before the power cells burn out completely." The trap had worked perfectly, but now they faced a new reality. The scattered human fleet would need time to regroup, time they didn't have. The Retribution and her sister ships were about to face the finest military mind in the Zilani Empire with exhausted crews and depleted weapons. "Options?" Jenna asked her staff. "We could retreat," suggested the communications officer. "Pull back to the Kepler system and regroup." "No." Marcus's voice was firm despite his injuries. If we run now, Noxra will pursue us across 3 systems. Better to face her here, where we control the terrain. Jenna studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. The nebula still held advantages: sensor interference, hiding places for smaller ships, and the psychological impact of their earlier victory. Signal all ships, she decided. We hold position. Set up a defensive perimeter around the quantum mines we planted earlier. As the crew rushed to implement her orders, Marcus moved closer, his voice pitched for her ears alone. Jenna, about what we were discussing in medical... She turned to look at him, seeing her own feelings reflected in his eyes. Around them, the bridge buzzed with pre-battle preparations, but for a moment they existed in their own quiet space. After the battle, she promised, when this is over, we'll have that conversation properly. And if one of us doesn't make it? She reached out, her fingers briefly intertwining with his. Then we'll face whatever comes together. No regrets, the tactical display chimed. New contacts were appearing at the nebula's edge. Admiral Noxra had arrived ahead of schedule, and she brought with her the full might of the Zalani war machine. The final test was about to begin. Victory's price. Admiral Noxra's flagship emerged from hyperspace like a blade cutting through the Crimson Nebula. The massive dreadnought dwarfed every other vessel in the battle space, its hull bristling with weapons that could reduce asteroids to dust. Behind it came wave after wave of Zalani warships, cruisers, destroyers, and fighter squadrons that blotted out the stars. By all the ancestors, whispered Commander Thekvar from his damaged bridge. The Admiral herself has come. Noxra stood on her command deck, studying the tactical display with eyes like frozen nitrogen. Her ritual scars gleamed in the harsh lighting as she assessed the impossible scene before her. A human ambush in Zalani space using weapons that violated the known laws of physics. Report, she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of absolute power. 47 ships destroyed, Admiral, her tactical officer replied with barely controlled fear. The humans used some kind of matter disintegration weapon. Our formations were completely shattered. Noxra's membrane-covered eyes dilated slightly, the only sign of her surprise. In 30 years of warfare, she had never encountered a weapon that could simply erase matter from existence. These humans were more dangerous than intelligence had suggested. Fascinating, she murmured. Signal the human fleet. I would speak with their commander. Aboard the Retribution, Jenna received the transmission request with grim satisfaction. Noxra's arrival had been expected, but facing the legendary admiral would require every bit of skill and cunning she possessed. Put her through, Jenna ordered, standing straight despite the exhaustion that pulled at her bones. The view screen shimmered, revealing Admiral Noxra in all her terrifying glory. The Zalani commander studied Jenna with predatory interest, noting the younger woman's steady gaze and unwavering posture. You are the architect of this trap, Noxra stated. It wasn't a question.
Captain Jenna Cross, commanding the human task force, Jenna replied formally.
Admiral Noxra, I presume. Indeed. Your ambush was impressive, crude in its execution, but effective against lesser commanders. However, I am not Commander Thekvar. Marcus moved to stand beside Jenna, his presence a steady comfort despite his injuries. The bridge crew watched tensely as 2 of the galaxy's finest military minds measured each other across the void. You're outnumbered 5-1, Noxra continued. Your exotic weapons are nearly depleted. My sensors detect the energy patterns. Surrender now, and I will ensure your crews receive honorable treatment. Jenna felt a cold smile touch her lips. I appreciate the offer, Admiral, but I think we'll decline. You see, there's something you don't know about this nebula. On cue, the space around Noxra's fleet began to change. What had appeared to be natural cosmic phenomena revealed themselves as more human ships. Not just the battle group from the ambush, but an entire fleet. 63 vessels powered up simultaneously, their weapons trained on the Zalani formation. The second trap, Jenna explained calmly. We knew you would come, Admiral. This entire engagement was designed to lure you and your main fleet into this nebula, where we've been waiting for months. For the first time in decades, Admiral Noxra felt uncertainty. The humans had outmaneuvered her completely, turning her own tactical brilliance against her. But she was not the Empire's greatest admiral without reason. Impressive deception, she admitted. But even outnumbered, my ships are superior to yours. This will be a costly victory for humanity. Perhaps, Jenna replied. But it will be a victory. End this war now, Admiral. Withdraw your forces, and we can negotiate a lasting peace. The transmission fell silent as Noxra considered her options. Around her, the Zalani fleet prepared for battle, but even her most loyal officers could see the trap they had flown into. The nebula had become humanity's killing ground. President Elena Rodriguez's voice suddenly filled the comm channel, her transmission reaching both fleets simultaneously. This is President Rodriguez of Earth. Admiral Noxra, Empress Quilnara has agreed to peace negotiations. Your Empress wishes you to withdraw immediately. The revelation struck like a thunderbolt. While the military commanders had been playing their deadly games, the politicians had been working behind the scenes. The war that had raged for 5 years was ending not with a climactic battle, but with a diplomatic revelation. Noxra's shoulders sagged slightly as the weight of command shifted. The Empress has spoken, she said finally. All Zalani ships, stand down. We return to our own space. As the alien fleet began its withdrawal, Jenna felt Marcus's hand find hers. The bridge crew cheered, but she could only think about the cost of their victory, the lives lost, the years of conflict, the love deferred by duty and war. It's over, Marcus said quietly, his voice full of wonder. Jenna turned to face him, seeing her own exhaustion and relief reflected in his brown eyes. The war was ending, but their story was just beginning. Almost over, she corrected, her fingers tightening around his. We still have that conversation to finish. Dr. Hart approached with a knowing smile. Lieutenant Vale needs rest, but he's cleared for light duty. And Captain, you might want to see this. She handed Jenna a communication pad displaying orders from Fleet Command. The Retribution was being recalled to Earth for a hero's welcome. More importantly, both she and Marcus were being promoted and reassigned to the new Diplomatic Protection Service, together. Looks like Command has other plans for us, Marcus said, reading over her shoulder. Jenna looked out at the stars, no longer filled with enemy ships, but with infinite possibilities. The war was over, the trap had succeeded beyond all expectations, and the future stretched ahead like an uncharted nebula waiting to be explored. Together? She asked. Always, Marcus replied, and in that simple word, Jenna heard the promise of everything they had fought to protect and everything they had yet to discover. The Crimson Gambit had ended in victory, but their greatest adventure was just beginning.